Riel Casimero beat Guillermo Rigondeaux via 12-round split decision. What an absolutely awful fight that was. I heard how bad this fight was, and I thought I have to do my due diligence and watch this fight and do a post-fight video for you guys, because I did a pre-fight video. You know, let's keep it professional. But this fight was absolutely terrible. I can't believe I've actually sat through the whole thing. It was one of those things that it was so boring, it's actually irritated me. And I'm going to have to go do something to get myself in a good mood, because that fight really was terrible. And now I don't even want to waste that much energy on this fight, because there was such little action, so few punches thrown, even less punches landed. Honestly, you could probably count the number of punches thrown by each man. You could probably count them on two hands and still have fingers to spare. This fight really was terrible. Rigondeaux moved excessively. Absolutely, it was just nauseating how much he was moving. And I don't have a problem with a fighter employing a kind of high mobility style. That's fine, as long as it's married with effective offense. But Guillermo Rigondeaux wasn't doing that. There were certain rounds in this fight, numerous rounds in this fight, where he was content to not engage in this at all. And he would quite literally go through the round without throwing anything other than a few pouring jabs. And that's just not acceptable. The mantra is hit and don't get hit. Okay, he didn't get hit, but where's the other half of that? You have to at least try and set up offense, but he didn't. And now Rigondeaux has somewhat of a history. He's had fights like this in the past. Doesn't excuse it, but it can be expected from him. Riel Casimero, on the other hand, not as disappointing as Rigondeaux, but still disappointing in his own right, because there were times where finally Rigondeaux would be stationary and in front of him, and Casimero couldn't set anything up either. So a lot of the time it was just these terrible stalemates, nothing being thrown, nothing landed. And then after that, Rigondeaux would get back on his bike and it was just Casimero chasing him around. So on my scorecard, I had it a draw. I pretty much had the same scorecard as Steve Farhood, other than one round. I can't really remember which one it was, but I had it a draw overall. The judges' scorecards, I think there was a 113, 115 in favour of Rigondeaux. I think that one's most reflective of the fight, but if it was in favour of Casimero, I just have this fight as a draw. And to be honest, I don't really care about any other, like Robert Hoyle having 117 to 111 in favour of Casimero. I think that's kind of BS. Same with Daniel Sandoval. This was such a close fight, not because it was competitive, but because neither guy could do anything effective. Really, really terrible stuff. Steve Farhood actually made a very good point, because Rigondeaux was doing so little and Casimero was the one pressing the action pretty much for the entire fight. You can't, it's easy to get carried away and give Casimero more credit than he deserves, because at the end of the day, yeah, he's pressing the action, but he wasn't landing anything effective at all, or very little effective punches. So yeah, truly a terrible fight. And it's really a shame, and I don't want to come across as disrespectful, because I have respect for for any fighter, as long as they operate within the rules and don't act like a complete shithouse. But with Guillermo Rigondeaux, he has come from abject poverty. He's come from a third world country in Cuba, and he's dedicated his life to a sport. And there were times in his career where he was genuinely hard done by, where he suffered some quite severe bias for whatever reason. He was ducked by most of his contemporaries. He was never done any favors by governing bodies and whatnot. So back in his career, there were points where I would have stood up for him and said, that's not right. He deserves better than that. But these kind of things are just inexcusable, because Guillermo Rigondeaux has had entertaining performances in the past. where he's been defensively aware and he's managed to dish out some good punches and have decent action. I'm not trying to say that, you know, he was the best thing since sliced bread. He wasn't, but he's performed in, he's had much more entertaining performances than this. So both guys had the audacity to raise their hands in celebration at the end of the fight, and it was just like, no, this is not the time for that. Onwards and upwards for Casimero. Hopefully he can get better, because it shows that he's just as limited a fighter as Guillermo Rigondeaux. Oh, what a terrible fight. Yeah, that's my take on this fight. Don't bother watching it. I actually have to come clean. After like the 7th or 8th round, I put the playback speed up to 1.25 just to get through it quicker. Terrible fight. Yeah, never watching it again. I say to you guys, don't even bother watching it. This video is all you need to know. Don't even watch the highlights. There's no point. Yeah, let's just move on. Let's just move on. Hopefully Pacquiao versus Ugas is a much better fight. Guillermo's fellow Cuban, hopefully he can be a bit more exciting. Another Philippines versus Cuba matchup. I'm sure that one's going to be much more entertaining. I'm sure of it. Trust me. Anyway, we move onwards. If you have a take on this fight, I guess let me know. If not, and I don't blame you, just like, share, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And let's move on to the next one. Thanks for watching, guys.